The dog didn't bark. It didn't move. It didn't even seem to care when the world passed it by. But when Lena looked into its eyes, something inside her stirred, something deep and unspoken. And in that moment, everything changed. The market was bustling, as it always was on Saturdays. The scent of fresh bread mixed with the tang of spices and the occasional waft of something more unpleasant, like old fruit or animal waste, lingered in the air. Crowds of people shuffled past, their faces a blur of indifference. It was just another day in the market, where everyone was too busy to pay attention to the details. But for one girl, something in the corner of the market caught her eye. Lena had always been sensitive to the world around her. Her mother called it a gift, but to Lena, it often felt like a burden. She could hear the whisper of leaves before the wind picked up, feel the tension in the air before a storm hit, and most of all, she could sense the pain in others. It was something she couldn't turn off, and today, it led her to an old, ramshackle stall tucked behind the rows of vendors hawking fruit, toys, and fabrics. A man stood behind the stall, his face grizzled and hard. His hands were rough, stained with the dirt of the market, but his eyes, those eyes were cold. On the ground in front of him, lying in a cage, was a dog. The dog was no larger than a kitten, its fur matted and dirty, eyes dull with exhaustion. It was a pitiful sight. The dog looked as though it hadn't seen the sun in weeks, its ribs visible beneath the thin coat of fur. It didn't even move as the crowd passed by, too lost in their own lives to notice. But Lena noticed. Her heart twisted, and without thinking, she walked over to the cage. The man didn't greet her, he didn't need to. She already knew what he was selling. It wasn't the dog's fault that it had ended up in this place. The thought of it broke her heart. "What's wrong with it?" Lena asked, her voice soft but firm. The man shrugged. "Nothing. Just a stray. A worthless mutt. Nobody wants it, so I'm just looking to make a buck off it before it's put down." Lena's stomach churned. The word "put down" echoed in her mind. She glanced down at the dog, which now looked up at her, its eyes meeting hers for the first time. It was like a spark of life flickered in those dull eyes, just for a moment. But it was enough. "I'll take it," she said, surprising herself. She didn't know where the words came from, but they were out before she could stop them. The man eyed her warily. "You sure? You can't even afford a proper dog. This one's no prize." "I'll take it," Lena repeated, more resolute now. She could feel the dog's pain, its fear, and a strange, deep sense of connection that made her heart race. The man, seeing an easy sale, didn't argue. He took her money, shoving the dog's cage into her hands with a grunt. "Good luck with that one," he muttered, turning away. Lena barely heard him. All she could focus on was the fragile creature she held in her arms. The dog was light, almost too light. It trembled slightly, but it didn't resist. In that moment, Lena made a silent promise. She would give this dog a life worth living. The journey home was quiet, the weight of the dog in her arms both heavy and comforting. Lena didn't talk much, but the dog seemed to understand. It lay still, its head resting against her chest, and for the first time in what seemed like forever, it was calm. When they arrived at Lena's apartment, she set the dog down gently on the couch. She quickly prepared a warm bed for it and filled a bowl with water, watching the dog's hesitant movements. It was scared. No, it was terrified, but it didn't run. It just lay there, watching her with cautious eyes. Lena didn't know what to do next. She had never owned a dog before, and this one seemed to have more emotional scars than physical ones. She reached out slowly, offering her hand. "It's okay," she whispered. "I'm not going to hurt you." The dog sniffed her hand, its nose cold, and then, with a shaky breath, it licked her fingers. It was the first sign of trust, and Lena smiled, her heart swelling with a mix of relief and love. Over the following days, Lena cared for the dog, whom she named Thor. The bond between them grew, but it was not without its struggles. Thor was fearful of loud noises, flinched at quick movements, and was often reluctant to eat. But Lena was patient. She talked to him softly, fed him at regular times, and gave him space when he needed it. Slowly, he began to trust her more. And then one evening something happened. Lena had just finished dinner when she heard a faint scratching at the door. She opened it to find Thor standing there, eyes wide with urgency. "What's wrong, boy?" she asked, kneeling down beside him. Thor didn't bark or whine, but he moved toward the kitchen, then stopped, looking back at her. Lena frowned, confused, but followed him. As soon as she entered the kitchen, she froze. There, in the corner of the room, was a figure, a shadowy outline in the dim light. Her heart skipped a beat. The man from the market was standing in her kitchen, a malicious grin spreading across his face. "I thought I might find you here," he said, his voice low and threatening. "You're not going to keep that dog, you know. It belongs to me. I'll take it back." Lena's breath caught in her throat. Her mind raced, panic flooding her system. But then she looked down at Thor. The dog's posture was different. His body was tense, his tail low, but there was something else in his eyes. Something that spoke of protection. "No," Lena said, her voice shaking but determined. "Thor is mine now. You can't have him." The man took a step forward, but before he could take another, Thor lunged. In a blur of movement, the dog was between Lena and the man, growling, showing teeth. It was as if a switch had flipped. This was no longer the scared, fragile animal that had been abandoned. Thor had become something else, a protector. The man paused, stunned by the dog's sudden aggression. "You think that mutt will stop me?" he sneered. Lena stood her ground.
"Yes.
"And if you don't leave, I'll make sure you regret it." Thor growled again, his stance unwavering. The man took a step back, clearly hesitant, before he turned and stormed out of the apartment. But not before he muttered a final curse under his breath. Lena collapsed onto the floor, her heart racing. She reached for Thor, who immediately padded over to her, nuzzling her hand as if to reassure her. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice breaking with emotion. "You saved me." From that moment on, Lena knew that Thor wasn't just a dog.
He was her family.
Her protector. Her friend. And, just as she had promised, she gave him a life worth living. A life filled with love, safety, and a bond that nothing would ever break. Together, they faced whatever came their way, side by side, their connection stronger than anything that could ever tear them apart.